Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into some pretty interesting stuff today. We've got these Korean news articles about a meeting between Trump and Keir Starmer back when Trump was president. Yeah, so Trump and the UK Prime Minister.
Oh, wow. During Brexit too, right?
Exactly. Yeah, right in the thick of it. And on the surface, it's just another political meeting, right? But when you look at the details and compare it to how Trump dealt with the EU, well, it gets pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's almost like he's, two different people,
Yeah.
With the EU, it was tariffs and threats and just constant battles.
Right.
But with Starmer, it was all smiles and compliments, even talk of a real trade deal and like totally free of tariffs.
I know, it's kind of wild, right?
Yeah, it really makes you think what was going on there.
Yeah, what was driving that difference? The articles are full of these moments that you just wouldn't expect from Trump, like calling Starmer a strong negotiator and a special person. He even complimented Starmer's accent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty far cry from his usual diplomatic style, to say the least.
Yeah. Definitely a different side of him. And this wasn't just about Brexit either. I mean, yeah, the UK was leaving the EU and Trump saw an opening there. But if you look closer at these articles, you can sense a real personal connection there between the two, which I think probably shaped how they interacted.
Okay, so we've got Brexit and a surprisingly friendly relationship between these two leaders. But what did it actually lead to? Did anything actually happen with this talk of a real trade deal?
Well, a full-blown trade deal, free trade between the U.S. and the U.K. didn't happen right away. I mean, these things are complicated.
Right.
Negotiations can get bogged down, especially with stuff like agriculture and digital trade. Those were big sticking points in this case.
So even with all the good vibes at first, the devil's in the details when it comes to actually getting these international agreements done.
Exactly. Plus, we can't forget about the EU watching all this. They wouldn't be thrilled about a U.S.-UK trade deal.
Right.
It could look like, undermining their position, especially right after Brexit.
That's a good point. So what Trump might have seen as a win for the U.S. and the U.K. could really rock the boat with the EU. Talk about walking a tightrope geopolitically.
Absolutely. And it gets even more interesting. The articles mention how Starmer used a state visit invitation from King Charles to try to smooth things over with Trump.
Wait, King Charles, this was during Trump's presidency, right?
Yeah, it was for a future visit after Trump would left office.
Wow. So Starmer was playing the long game, using a future state visit as leverage now. That's pretty savvy. And what's even crazier is that Trump was open to talking about the Chagos Islands. I mean, that's something that past presidents basically avoided.
Yeah, that's a big deal, just so everyone's on the same page. The Chagos Islands are British territory, but Mauritius claims them too. And the U.S. has a military base there. It's really complicated. So for Trump to even touch that issue, it says a lot about how much he wanted to get closer to the U.K., even if it meant causing problems somewhere else.
Yeah, like he was saying, look, I'm serious about this special relationship. But did that actually lead to anything concrete? Any policy changes or actions on the Chagos Islands?
Well, just the fact that it came up is pretty significant in itself. It shows a level of trust and openness that you didn't really see in Trump's foreign policy, especially compared to how he dealt with the EU.
So there's this pattern emerging. Good relations and possible trade deals with the UK, but a much tougher stance towards the EU.
Right.
What does this tell us about Trump's bigger foreign policy strategy?
That's the question, isn't it? And that leads us to one of the most interesting parts of this whole meeting, the discussions about defense and Ukraine. Because this is where we start to see some cracks in the U.S.-UK alignment. So Starmer, he promised to boost UK defense spending, which Trump probably liked. But when it came to Ukraine, they weren't on the same page at all.
So even with the friendly vibes and the trade talk, they still disagreed on some pretty big stuff internationally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And this is where these articles get really interesting. They show how Trump was almost like dismissive of the need for the U.S. to get involved in Ukraine. He kept saying that the U.K. was strong enough on its own, and he even hinted that the U.S. might have some mining interests there.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a totally different approach from what Starmer wanted.
It's a pretty big contrast. Starmer's looking for a united front against Russia, and Trump's suggesting the UK go it alone, and maybe even that the U.S. could profit from the situation.
Exactly, and this difference in perspective, it's even more striking when you think about what was happening at the time. A lot of European leaders were really worried about Putin, didn't trust him to keep his promises. But Trump according to these articles, he seemed to believe that Putin would stick to the peace agreements.
Wow, so it's like they were having two completely different conversations.
Yeah.
One about building the strong U.S.-UK relationship, and the other about the bigger picture, where they just couldn't ignore these major disagreements on defense and security.
You got it, and it really shows how complicated international relations are. It's not just black and white, friend or enemy. There are all these layers and competing interests, and sometimes even totally opposite ways of thinking within those relationships.
So how did this meeting, with its mix of friendliness and tension, how did it affect the transatlantic alliance as a whole? Did Trump's, seeming preference for the UK, did it actually make the alliance stronger? Or did it cause problems between the U.S. and its European allies?
That's a question that's caused a lot of debate. Some people think that by putting the UK first, Trump accidentally weakened the whole transatlantic partnership.
Yeah.
Kind of like divide and conquer.
Yeah, right.
If it looks like the U.S. is playing favorites, it can create resentment and mistrust among the other allies.
Especially in a situation like Ukraine, where everyone needs to be on the same page to stop aggression and keep things stable. If the allies aren't united, it makes them vulnerable and gives countries like Russia an advantage.
Exactly, and that's why this meeting between Trump and Starmer is still relevant today. It shows just how complex international relations can be and how delicate these alliances are. And the potential consequences, intended or not, of political decisions on the world stage.
It definitely reminds you that you can't just take the headlines at face value. You have to dig deeper and think about the context and try to connect the dots to form your own opinions.
Exactly. And that's what these deep dives are all about, giving you the knowledge and the tools to understand this complicated world. Because knowing the past helps us make sense of what's happening now and be ready for what comes next.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Trump's meeting with Starmer, I want to leave you with one last question to think about. Considering everything we've talked about, the surprising friendliness, the talk of trade deals, the different views on defense and Ukraine, and how it all affected the transatlantic alliance, did Trump's approach ultimately help or hurt the U.S.'s position in the world?
There's no easy answer. You have to really think about the evidence and the historical context and be open to different points of view.
And that's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah.
It challenges us to think critically and weigh the pros and cons of different approaches, and to realize that when it comes to international relations, there are rarely easy solutions or simple answers.
So keep exploring and keep asking questions and keep diving deeper into this complex world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time. It's good to see that some relationships can survive even when, things get messy politically. But it does make you think, did Trump's approach, with all the focus on these bilateral deals and kind of a transactional way of looking at things, did that actually help or hurt the U.S. in the long run?
Well, that's the big question, and there's no easy answer. Some people argue that Trump being so direct and willing to shake things up, that it actually pushed other countries to rethink their relationships with the U.S., in a good way. But others say that his unpredictable style and not really caring about multilateralism, that it damaged the U.S.'s credibility and weakened its alliances.
It is interesting how one meeting, like the one we see in these Korean news articles, can lead to so many different interpretations and spark these big debates about U.S. foreign policy. It really shows how connected everything is globally and how even seemingly small events can have huge consequences.
It's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
You're not over one piece. And it sets off this whole chain reaction that can completely reshape international relations. And that's why it's so important for you to be aware of these nuances, to understand why politicians make the decisions they do, and to really think critically about the information you see and hear.
Yeah, it's a reminder that we can't just passively read the headlines. We have to dig deeper and look at things from different angles and connect the dots to form our own opinions.
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to do here on The Deep Dive, to give you the knowledge and tools to navigate this complex world. Because ultimately understanding the past helps us make sense of the present and be ready for the future.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Trump's meeting with Starmer, I want to leave you with one last thought. Given everything we've discussed, the surprising friendliness between them, the potential for trade deals, their different views on defense and Ukraine, and the impact on the transatlantic alliance, do you think Trump's approach ultimately made the U.S. stronger or weaker on the world stage?
That's a great question. And there's no right or wrong answer. You have to really weigh the evidence. and consider the historical context
Yeah.
and be open to different perspectives.
And that's what makes it so fascinating. It challenges us to think critically and to consider the potential costs and benefits of different approaches, and to realize that in international relations, things are rarely black and white.
So keep learning and keep questioning.
Yeah.
And keep diving deeper into the complexities of our world.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.